right. I'll call the meeting to order. Its agenda, date, time, and location were properly announced. We will start off tonight with the approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the regular meeting of June 20th, 2022 with the correction in the absence, the present and absence? We have Mrs. Wilson as present and Mrs. Kulchin as absent, and those need to be flipped.
And Katie gets the award for best reading the minutes and catching that one, so.
Good job.
Yes, actually Kim's like, I hate it when I make a mistake, but it's nice when I know that people are reading it and they're double checking, so thank you for your
So would you like to make a motion to approve? Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Chuck, any other corrections, questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have donations?
No donations.
No donations.
No quiet.
All right, we'll give them a break because they've been very generous.
Been very generous.
Payment of the bills. Is there a motion to approve for the month of June the amount of $1,497,929.34?
I'll second that.
Okay, so Matt and Chuck, any questions?
A couple questions, I had some multiple questions on some things that I thought I'd just put out and open so we know.
Okay.
One thing, did see that Mike LaFever had a payment of, was it $10,000, right, Patty? Just so everybody knows, before I got here, Mike bought all the construction materials for a tiny house. And if you've ever been in the back, and it's been there, this is the first time I don't see it back there. It was always between the two garages, and the idea was the students were gonna put it together, and then he was gonna put it back onto his property. Well, after about 7 years to complete it, Mike's like, I really don't need it, and we found a better opportunity to do it. So we paid him back for the materials that he paid for, and now we have a tiny house, we're using it. The football team's using it and some other things. So that's that. The other piece I wanted to, there's some talk about, there's some big checks that were written out to our leasing company. Just for clarification on that, between Patty and myself, I think we've done a really nice job of trying to reduce structural debt. Because of some increase in revenues and maybe a little decrease in some expenditures, we have the possibility of paying off all but maybe one of the buses. And what that does is save us somewhere up approaching, if not over, $100,000 in structural debt that we would have to pay next year and the years forward. So there's two checks, and the way it was written that way was because there's one check that we wrote, and there's another check that Patty wrote that we want to make sure the auditors look at our stuff and say, because the last thing we want to do is go and pay a 200, I think it was 204,000, and all of a sudden the auditor's like, oh, you forgot this, this, or this. So once we get the okay from that, that next check is already written, but it hasn't been sent until we know that for sure. So I think it's just another way that we're trying to work creatively. Patty's been working her tail off, staying late, just trying to figure out how we close out the 21-22 school year and set us up most effectively for the 22-23. Patty, I miss anything with that?
There's paid off the special ed van, and we also with the $204,000 check in the balance of one of our other vans. So all we will have left next year is the Van Horn lease and one bus.
Nice. Good job.
Yeah.
And I was talking to the group in one of our other committee meetings. If you look at, our total budget's around $10 million, and around 80, what percent of that is staffing for us? That's about 83-84%? Yeah. So if you look at out of $10 million, only about 1.5 goes to things that we can buy stuff with. So between what we will be saving now with busing, which is approaching $500,000, and now we have another $100,000. If you look at it percentage-wise, if we're saving that percentage off of $1.5 million, that's why we're able to do some things, because we have done that. So a lot of that goes to Patty and her always looking for creative ways to pay off and get rid of structural debts, and that's why we're in the position we are to look at going to a referendum because of all that stuff too, so.
And also the budget in 2 years scares me, so that's different content.
Okay, any other questions, discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have the cash summary.
And I'll my comments were also part of the cash summary.
Okay,
So we'll
so
just tie that all together.
any
unless there's
questions
other
on that?
questions.
Great. Comments from the public, I didn't see any, Gary doesn't have anything to say tonight? No? Okay. All right, we'll move on. Building reports.
Okay, so right now Sandy is somewhere in the Canadian or Great East. I know last time I seen pictures she was in Niagara Falls. And Susan has a family and in here, so I'm just gonna kinda quick hit these. You know, it's July, there's not a lot. Besides, summer school's been going great. Our staff have been doing some really great things. We have Jumpstart in August that's gonna be happening. And again, our attendance is going fantastic. Cultural, I'm really excited. We had a really great meeting at the end of June, talking about how our mental health and behavioral framework are gonna be put together. We brought our new school psychologist together, our new high school counselor. We have a really exciting team to really start building some of these things. So we have another meeting coming up in a week or two. We've been using our friends at CISA 7 to help get comparisons on what other districts are doing and how we can build a systemic process to this. So, yeah, I was telling another group, for as thick as our packet is, you can tell we're doing a lot of stuff here, and it's a lot of cleanup and a lot of administrative things to make sure we're up for this fall.
Great. Board committee reports, administrative and support staff met tonight.
Oh, yes. We discussed the admin contract and pushed for the review to next month.
Okay.
For the, we have administrative contracts, that'll be later on, we'll talk about, and then the support staff, handbooks, we're pushing another month, we had some questions that we didn't get.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you guys were a little windy in there tonight.
Yeah.
Teacher negotiations.
That's Matt.
We'll have a recommendation presented later in the agenda.
All right. And policy, we have some Neola updates later on the agenda with technical corrections, first reading, and readings and approvals. We'll get to it. And buildings and grounds. I don't know, is that Chuck?
It's actually Chris.
Chris,
Chuck,
oh.
you gonna take it?
Sure. We discussed the potential reduction for the referendum, some areas that were recommended that we could reduce. We talked about what priorities are there, and I think we'll talk about that more later on.
Great. And we are
We're
hoping
gonna-
to have a presentation, but
Todd is not going to be here, so, yeah, why don't we go there? So one of the things, and, we've been working on this for nearly a year now, I think, through part of the education foundation is how can we go and engage our alumni a little bit better? So, through this process, and Gina's been part of this the whole way through, is going through and trying to find every one of our graduates since 1955, get the names, try to find a database on how we can communicate, and we're slowly building our alumni base. And the Education Foundation has taken this on. It's really exciting. It's something that will help us just get the word out. So over the last year, we got a list of names. Those names led to contact information that contact information, sent the survey out to our alumni, and now we are building a group of alumni that are choosing to be part of our network, which we can reach out for, we can celebrate, we can do all that other stuff. So today is the launch of the Ram Nation, is what we're calling it. And I just wanted to kind of acknowledge all the work of the foundation to get here. It's been financial contributions, they've put a lot of money into this, and we are just in day one of what we're going to hopefully build over the next few years. Gina, what did I miss?
I'd like to thank Rita, Wendy, Todd, I don't know,
Tom,
for getting those lists
yeah,
rolling, and going back through. Rita's dragging out yearbooks and, you know, everybody that's put that through. I think Gary even was involved in some of those yearbooks, helping get names or classes, taking them from the sounder, I don't know. They're related, so they probably worked on it. She had access. But they did a lot of work, so.
So you're referring to Rita Horsemeyer? Wendy is,
Bemis.
Bemis.
okay.
So how did you say you began generating lists? Like, I guess we talked about this a little bit at a different meeting, right? Because I don't think my kids, if they got contacted, they've lost that memory. So they claim at least not to have been contacted at all, and they're pretty recent grads, so like maybe you've started with the older grads? More
I'm not sure
mature
that
grads?
We have a list of some, but we're nowhere close to comprehensive. Part of this launching that starts tonight is to get out like, hey, have you heard about us? And there's gonna be a lot of people like, no, we haven't.
Right.
Good, then sign up and be part of this. So really, our campaign for the next few months will be, have you heard about us? Sign up. Would you just like a newsletter? We're actually, have Haley Vandenbush is gonna be helping us with getting different blasts out. So once you sign to be part of our network, you'll get quarterly blasts of information like, hey, this is what's happening in the district now, or here's a reunion that's happening here. We really want to be an arm to make sure that our alumni see, this is how I can give back to the community if I choose, but it's also doing something to support those alumni that are out there. We have a group every year that run reunions, and here's some of the campaign pictures that you can see that Haley has created around here, that we're just going to be different things. You're gonna see it on our Facebook, you're gonna probably see it in the Sounder. We have QR codes that all you have to do is take a picture and it can do that. So it's really a concerted effort to get more and more in there. So if they haven't heard, let them know it's coming, and we want them to take a picture of that QR code and then put their name and their email on it. And you know what? For right now, just being part of our database will go a long way, and we'll go from there.
And we're trying to capture when the seniors graduate, before they actually leave, to get an email that's valid, that's not their school email, something that's, so a lot of the ones, the recent grads, you know, we don't have anything, everything is their school email, so, you know.
Might be able to help with that by capturing that in campus, so that we have it all in one place.
Mm.
We can ask, because we can put a second email in, just like we can our parent.
Okay,
We certainly could do that.
yeah, maybe we could even access some of those parent ones. So, yeah,
And it's gonna be really great. I mean, my daughter is planning their fifth reunion right now, right? And it's not easy to do just Facebook.
Right.
Right, so like something like this would be great.
mhm.
I was just notified that one of our class members is starting to plan our 40th coming, hard to say that. And that'd be, I'll let her know about this.
Right.
I bet the Katie and Carrie would know who it is, but whatever.
And then we're hoping that once we have this network, we will have it by, so when there is a time to plan it, we're like, oh, here's all the 74 grads, you know, and be able to communicate even more efficiently.
Resource, yeah.
Yeah, we have a long way to go, you know, there's districts that have been doing this for 5-10 years that still aren't where they wanna be, but, you know, the journey starts with the first step, and that's what today is,
Yep.
so.
Yeah, I think we just paid our second year, so, yeah, it's been a year.
Yep, it has been a year, yeah, and it's the first couple of years, it's $5,000 a year, so there's a major contribution that our foundation is paying to do this, because we feel like it is that important. So, and it'll be great for the district, I mean, to have this and be able to work like that back and forth, it's a really positive thing.
Yeah. Do you have anything else on that?
Sorry, I wanted to see you spend, sorry, I don't know. With the font.
You're up next again, referendum update.
Okay, well, this is a little bit of me, but I'd really like our facilities group to talk about it. So everyone should have this document in front of them. Can you get one?
I have an extra.
You have an extra? Here we go. There we go. Okay. So one of the things, and you had the article I gave to Gary. Did you get that article today, Gary? I sent you this morning. Okay. See if it should be there. I sent it, I think around 11 o'clock or so. But I can resend it too. If you don't have it, I'll send it again before I leave. But, you know, one of the things, we're fortunate enough to host the chamber event last week Friday for LPI. And just looking at the survey and everything else, it was very clear that people were uneasy about a referendum that would increase taxes. So one of the things that we talked about last month was, can we find a way to go to a referendum and not increase taxes? And yes, we can, because we have been doing some of these things around structural debt. So this is what Matt and I kind of put our heads together and thought, what are some things that we could do to get us from that 33 million down to about 29 million, is the number that we'll be looking at. So, from there, I'm gonna send this to the facilities about some of the conversations we had, in that group. And then I really like to open it up to this group, cause my hope is that we can come to a agreed upon list, because when we have this, as you read in the article, next week we'll be having another board meeting, a special meeting next week, Monday, to talk about if we are going to referendum, what is that question going to be, and really kind of taking those formal steps, is that what we choose. So if we're gonna go for 29.9, we have to make sure that we have a budget that looks like a $29.9 million budget. So this is our chance to talk about what should be called out and what should stay. Chuck or Matt, you wanna talk anything about the discussion that we had in our facilities?
Well, I'll just start by saying what we talked about, first of all, was looking at what's listed here, as we thought about, are there any items on here that we don't want taken out, and, or what the positives and negatives of that would be. We discussed briefly, number one, removing the private drive, if that's something that should remain in the takeout list or not, or if there's alternatives to doing that, if it's not part of the referendum, maybe there's alternatives in the future. So that was one of the first things. And just jumping down, we talked about reduce the roof replacement area, whether that's something we wanna do all of, or do we wanna scale it back, and I think the consensus was that that's something very important, and we don't wanna kinda half do it, we wanna keep that in there and get it done 100% and not scale that one back. Then, I think we talked about the link, I'm trying to find which number it is.
Number 9, yeah.
Number 9. Oh, yes. We were, I think, all in agreement that to eliminate the corridor link at the south end of the building is a good idea, just based on the cost and the value we get out of it. It's a good way we were in favor of that. Help me out, Mike, anything else, I think?
The big points were the roof and the corridor link, were some of the big things that we discussed in that group. Matt, agree? How about the rest of us, any thoughts on that?
So the corridor link, is that something that we could do someday? Like, I feel like the way it's set up right now is kind of silly, not having that, right? So I get, like, and it's $1.2 million, right? Like, that's a easy way to cut a lot. It also seems like a big benefit to have it. And initially, like, when we got this in the email, right, that wasn't really accepted savings, right?
It wasn't, and one of the number we're at right now is 28.7, which means we have 1,000,001 to play with. So that corridor link would be, if we were to not accept it, would get us right to that number. The one piece that we're still trying to get between now and Monday is because interest rate is proposed to go up maybe another whole percent. What is that number we can really use towards construction, because the debt services are going to be going up. And the other piece, I think, to be 100% transparent with this is, these are numbers that are projected on hyperinflation if we put a shovel in the ground 2 years from now. In some ways, we're making speculations on things that could be very, very different. This is today's construction cost times X percent to make sure that we do what we tell our community to do. So even some of this, as we're calling this, depending on what happens with if we go to referendum, if it said yes, and then we go to the planning process, some of these things we might be able to afford, depending on where we're at 18 months from now. So yeah, so that's the give and take of all this, is we're speculating on something that, heck, I don't know if the Fed knows what's gonna happen next month right now from everything I hear.
The plumbing issue that we had, or that was a big deal, right, with the band room, is that still proposed, or is that something that you definitely would cut out of there because of, you've had so many issues in there in the past?
So the band room, when the architects came in, and in some ways, this is our chance to kind of do a little bit of value engineering too. They were like, oh, we can do this, and we can blow up this room, and we can do all these other things. And everything was moving so fast, I'm like, okay, well, this is about setting a vision right now. That green room needs to get done, because, yeah, there was raw sewage that came back 2 years ago. There's no carpeting in there. We need to do something with it. But if we use the current footprint and just do some nice things around there, it has the elevated floor, so we need to knock that out. We need to make it a little bit bigger, because we're gonna have close to 100 kids in there soon. We can do that, and it's not gonna be $800,000. We can do it for a lot less. So that's where some of that value engineering is coming on with this. So, yeah, but I would say green room has to be done, and the band room has to be done, but let's not blow out all this other stuff. Let's make more common sense changes.
I thought the green room wasn't even touched in the original plan. We're talking about the dressing rooms, the old dressing rooms.
Yeah, so that's what we're doing is, what the architects did is they took the current, like, referees locker room,
Yeah.
and they made that into the green room and everything else. I said, with this, leave that alone.
Right.
Let's do things in that area that has our choir, our band, and our art room. Let's do some reconfiguration in that. And then the green room that currently is, let's do some things there. Leave everything that has its current footprint, but take down some walls, do those things that we need to.
Okay.
And that'll be a lot cheaper than
Yeah.
the additional hallways and some of the other things that they had in that first plan.
That's actually an improvement.
I think it is too, actually. I
Because
think.
that area needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I think it's better and less expensive by doing it this way. Not bias.
I agree with the roof 100%. It needs to be taken care of all at once. And then also a couple other things I was wondering about, like the fitness equipment. I mean, can't we just use what we have? And then is that something that maybe we could try and get a sponsor for? Or, because we've invested a lot in the current fitness center. I just wonder if that's another area to consider. Also, is there anything we can put into our annual budget if we're saving on, sorry Patty, if we're saving money on busing? I know 2 years from now is scary, but some of these smaller items, could we still consider putting them, like they would come from our budget, or look for, like you said, alternatives in the future for funding? I guess I'm wondering really about the road in the back. I mean, we know safety is a high concern for parents, and we said that was an accident waiting to happen kind of in the back, and we do need to address that area. So are we still addressing the safety issue with driving through the back of the school, or are we saying we're not gonna change our roads back there?
I think if I could just,
Please.
in our committee, we talked about that, it actually is a very high priority, that we really want to see that happen.
Okay.
And if we would put something back in, that would probably be the first thing we would
Okay.
put back in. But we're gonna explore the option of like, finding alternative ways of paying for it. If it can't be part of the referendum, find it other ways, but.
And there's been some conversations. I think that it is a must-have. It's how are we gonna get there, and there's been some conversations on other ways to get there at a reduced cost. So those are some things that we definitely,
That's why it was an easy takeout, because
because we have some other ways to make it
Okay.
happen.
It would be an advantage to the community as well, because it could be the prelude to more residential homes along that area.
Okay, good.
I have a question related to that. Like, so number 3 says you have to accept number 2 to consider, but I don't understand what that means. Like, it seems to me like we could not build a maintenance shed right now, regardless of what we do with the road. Right, so it makes it sound like the only way to not build a maintenance shed is if we
I think
don't do the road.
that's what it sounds like, but I think what he's saying is, if you don't do number 2, you can't even do number 3, that's how it should be, because without the new road, you couldn't put that maintenance shed back there. So you have to do number 2 to even consider doing number 3. So if you don't do number 2, you have to automatically cut number 3, because
So if we don't not do number, like, is that what,
Double
is that what you're saying?
What?
Right, like North Carolina, like, so if we don't build the road, do we build the shed?
if we don't build the road, we can't build the shed. So I think it was saying that, I think he's trying to show that they tie together.
Because we could build the road
and
and
not do
still
the
not
shed.
build the shed.
But you can't build a shed without building the road, so I think that's,
We're either saying both of them or just saying the shed.
Makes sense?
I don't know.
the double negative still has me all confused.
Yeah, and I've read it a lot of times before I decided it doesn't make sense. But I think we could certainly hold off on the shed, right? Like, the shed was
Right.
so no matter
Yeah.
what we do with the road.
And it was a pretty,
Yes.
it was a pretty big shed, it's my goal, just, if storage if I've heard storage once, I've heard it 100 times. We have every nook and cranny has things in it, someday to have a place where we don't have to worry about it, that we can actually get classrooms back and do some of those, because we're converting classrooms into storage areas. But yeah, no, we're fine the way we are, and we can keep living the way we are.
I guess the only other question that I had about it was there's a couple things on here that are like reducing corridor width, which I'm assuming is saving a bunch of money because we're reducing to what it currently is, right, and keeping the same home. Like, there more places we can do that, or not? Is that
Well,
not what that is?
That's one thing we weren't quite sure about, is what is our current width? And then with the reduction, how much of a reduction is it, or is the reduction just gonna get us to our current width?
That's how I would have read it, but I don't.
We weren't sure about that, right?
And Matt will be here next Monday, so he would be the perfect, from Bray would be here, so in some cases, we wanna make sure that we have in general that number that we need to get down to before we craft, the question. But as we come to a final kind of piece, those would be really good questions for him to ask next week, Monday. Cause yeah, I'm like, okay, a foot doesn't seem much different, but, especially knowing it's for a commons area where we have every kid coming and going every day, and now we're trying to do it in 2 lunch periods instead of 3, do we need to have that space there? So, those would be some things, that he kinda brainstormed up that I'd have questions on too. And if we're not going to do the corridor link, or we choose not to do the corridor link, then let's do those other things around hallways and stuff, cause we do have a little bit of money to play with.
And it seems like you've done stuff on here, you did a committee, and what you did with,
Yep.
to be able to say we can do it without a tax increase, right? So that's really where we're at.
And we're, I guess, the piece from this, from us is, we can get to a number, besides roof and some other things, we can be comfortable with how this plays out. It allows us to kind of move forward and talk about crafting that question if that's what we choose to do. Okay, well, stay tuned, next week, Monday, 5 o'clock, we will do a special meeting.
Write down your questions so you don't forget,
Yep,
so we
and,
can ask Matt.
we'll go from there. Okay,
Alright. We have administrative contracts next. Is there a motion to approve? I don't know who's in. Katie, is there a second?
A second.
Rini? Any questions or discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And then we have the 22-23 support staff handbook, and
Gonna hand
that,
out,
we're
hold
gonna
off till
hold
next
off
month.
till next month on
Yep.
that. Gonna,
if you have a couple more questions on that, I will share that with the committee, and then we will have those answered at our next board meeting in August.
great. And then the teacher handbook, the 22-23 handbook. We discussed that.
Yep. That would be Matt.
Is there a motion to approve? All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
Amy, any questions or discussion?
So I have to be honest with this, like, I didn't get to this one, didn't read this handbook, so, I mean, we can vote to approve, but I'll abstain from that one. I've not had a chance to read that. And if it's got some of the same things that were in, like, the staff handbook that caused us to table that, I guess I would encourage you to read that. But I haven't read it.
I don't know what was the holdup. I mean, we didn't have any problems with, what we looked at in there, so. Did we? They were all pretty minor changes.
Let me just review real quick.
All right, you review that.
This is the teacher handbook?
The teacher.
I do think some of the discussion for support staff weren't even about the changes, but Katie being new to the board had some questions about the handbook itself and how it was written and some other things, so
Okay.
it wasn't even about the changes, but some other areas around just that. Is that, I mean,
It's accurate, yep.
I would make sure I'm accurately going through it, so some of this is, hey, first time around, wanted a little bit more time. And we had a huge packet of stuff that we sent you guys this, we're working hard to keep you guys busy here, so.
Okay.
I'm just quickly reviewing again. I glanced at it quickly and I didn't get a good solid read. So just
We're being serenaded tonight.
That was my stomach rumbling at first when they did the motorcycle. Like, I know it's hungry, I wasn't that hungry, like, oh, that's not.
So on page 15,
What's
it's
that?
got some of the same stuff that I questioned in the staff book.
I
where
just
it's
got the
changing
last.
pronouns.
the,
Oh, the pronouns we're going to address through policy, and whatever those
Whatever's
changes
decided
are,
there.
they will be absorbed into the handbook.
So some of so through the policy committee, there were some concerns, and one of the reasons, we are looking at some of the policy, like even the technical corrections, is there, with the pronouns, there's some misuse of them, they, things like that, that we're getting some clarification on. That once those policies change, those policies will immediately update those handbooks, because it says the same thing in those policies. So yeah, so those, anything that is pronoun related in there that's policy related is actually getting checked on through the policy.
Yep.
So what does that, I get it, if it becomes policy, then it goes into the book, okay. When is the policy, is that being reviewed by Neola or by
Actually,
us?
we're gonna be discussing that in a couple, but, there is no action on that tonight. So, but yeah, if,
So
can
is there
we
an
can,
event?
we can scooch down there?
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
You can-
well,
yeah.
let's just pop down to, item 14, the technical correction of the first reading. So, on that, we had discussion and policy regarding the pronouns that, because for Neola, that's just an automatic. That, all these attorneys got together and said, this is what's proper now. And so it's taking out the he, she, and a lot of them are being changed to say like the student or the employee, or, wherever those can be done. Policy was okay with that, but where it still was a he, she, that the they or their is not appropriate for grammar reasons. Mostly, let's be real, it's not appropriate, so unless they change grammar rules, we shouldn't have that in there. And, I doubt that's gonna change, but who knows, the world we live in. So even just standing on that alone is enough to say, we need something different there. What can we use instead of the incorrect word? So, that is one of the things that Kim is gonna be checking on with Neola, like what other options do we have? Because we don't want to have it incorrect just to try to make somebody happy.
And I think in past meetings, we've discussed about this, maybe before Katie came on, that Neola is what's recommended, strongly recommended based on attorneys, but still isn't what we have to do, because we are still representative of this community, and we are representative of what the norms and feelings are of this community. I mean, just to be clear,
Right,
we normally accept what Neola says, but we
Right.
don't have to, because we're reflective of what this
and
community
that's what
is.
we're saying, is
Okay.
we need something different, we're not happy with this.
That's, okay, that's
So
clear.
that's what policy said, and so Kim's going to see, is there something different, otherwise we're gonna use he, she. Basically, that's what I took from the policy, is that what we,
So back to the original question, does it do us any good to just table this, or can we just accept it? Because it'll be changed when we decide on policy.
right, it'll automatically be changed in all of our documents to be what the policy is about pronouns.
And in our handbooks, we have other things in there like compensation for coaches, pieces like that, compensation for event workers, things that we really like to get out right now. So
Right.
any pronoun stuff will be automatically, because policy dictates that, and we're just trying to make sure that they complemented each other. But the real important for me are making sure that our coaches know their pay, the things we talked about with event workers, and I'm trying to get anything else in there. HRA, what we did to clean up our HRA statements and some of those other things, to me, those are the really big, those are the mission critical things, with both of the handbooks.
Yep,
Also, in the teacher handbook and the support staff handbook, it's got descriptions of like principal, supervisor, and then that's got all those changes in the pronouns, but there's other places that don't change it, so I guess I'm confused about like when policy causes the change in here and where these changes are coming from to these specific positions.
I did not go through when the handbooks were updated. I did not go through and search for he, she's that were there outside of policy. It probably, since we're gonna be updating all that, we'll probably look at that, and that's a good catch. to just go ahead and make those updates once we get the answer from Neola. It's probably going to be like the other ones are, the student or students or.
Yeah, well, so my
Staff.
argument would be that we should be making the changes, like, I think that there's a biological reality here that should be there. So,
Well, this is not a place to be political, it is a place to be grammatically correct. So I think we stand on that and move forward with that, so. I don't know if anybody else feels different. I mean, I think we all have personal thoughts, but sometimes we have to separate those when we're here. So, back to, we do have a motion on the floor to approve the teacher handbook that will change with the grammatically correct things once we get that decided how we're handling all of those, so that it's consistent throughout. And, so, anybody else? Questions, discussion?
It's not the end of the world if we table it too. I mean, whatever this group wants to do. We know we threw a lot at it. I know there's consequences to either way we do it, so, but, nice thing is when it comes down to it, it's your decision how you wanna move forward. But to your point, all the pronoun things were, anything that was changed in there as policy, things that weren't, or things that are just district things. So this is an administrative or a school thing. This is, the Neola trying to be as non-gender specific as possible to stay away from legal issues. And I would say is less about political than legal ramifications of it is what we heard, and just what I said to the policy committee. Richard, I always call him our policy Sherpa. We have had this conversation about how, some of these things, although the legal beagles think are great, has these really deep conversations where you go to another district, everyone's like, yeah, get them out, to understand that not everyone is a wide brush. And even though I couldn't be more pleased with Neola and how I feel we are protected and how we are clean up to that, some of these conversations feel like uncomfortable when we have to do it, so yeah.
Why don't we just table it then like the other one? Can we do that?
Should all three be tabled if that's gonna be the issue in each one of them?
And make,
Support teacher and student?
Does student have policy in it?
No.
I don't think student has any policy in it.
There's references to that it's more of a number and just a summary of than the entire policy.
No. I don't know if there's any pronoun.
we've got 3 student ones too, the high school, and elementary school.
So as we do have a motion on the floor, I think we have to vote on that motion and move on from whatever that vote is. Is that accurate? Or-
Was
or-
there a
or-
second?
There was none.
There was a second.
There was a second?
Yeah.
Amy?
Okay, I didn't hear it, sorry.
So yeah, so take the vote, and a simple no vote means we bring it back next month.
Our sergeant at arms is not here to give me.
Yeah. So I think we have to vote on it, and then if we
If it
want
doesn't
to-
pass, then
if
we
it doesn't
can
pass,
table
then
it or
we'll just
whatever.
table it and bring it back next month.
All right, does everybody understand where we're at? Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to approve the handbook, knowing that the pronoun situation will be rectified. Is there, we already have it on the floor? All those in favor? Please say aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
I'll vote. All right, raise hands. That'd be much easier.
I voted for it.
We're the policy.
Oh, no.
committee, that's why. We know we're.
And we don't have a,
Okay.
So, it failed due to lack of majority. So we will, go ahead and table that, because it was a 3-3. And,
Or was it a 3-3 or 3 abstain? Or that was support staff that was abstaining? If they voted.
No, I'll vote no.
those opposed, I
was
guess I
gonna
should finish it. Those
yeah,
opposed?
yeah, exactly.
Those opposed?
Yeah.
Aye.
Okay, it failed.
That's the first one of mine since I've been here. 6 years, the first one that opposed.
All right, so
that was
we're
for the
gonna,
teacher handbook, right?
so we'll table that one.
That was teacher and support staff didn't come up for a vote.
So next is the student handbook.
Can I just ask a quick question? Are those people not gonna get paid while we're waiting for this, or what? How's that work?
I'm trying to think.
It's in the,
We
it's
were
in there.
holding that in. I don't know if we have any events between, well, actually, we will have events, but they're not gonna be paid till the end of the season.
We do have event workers, but event workers, even if they're one of the first football or volleyball games, probably we'd at least have this by then, so,
We should, as
I
if
think-
it goes next month, we should
Yeah.
be okay.
yeah.
Biggest hit again, perhaps.
What about the attorney?
Right.
Oh, yeah, that is important.
It doesn't operate under previous contract?
That's what we're changing.
Yeah.
I know, but I mean, it doesn't carry forward. It has to be,
We can vote on that issue independently.
It's in the appendix.
Yeah, because we'd have to have it in our agenda as we're doing it independently. So,
Yeah, but it's in the agenda as part of this, right?
I don't know. I think we leave it as it is. I mean,
Or we just need one. One vote change.
You do have the option of voting again.
you could make a motion to vote with, yeah, the other piece you could do is vote to approve the teacher handbook with the modification to come back again with the pronoun changes. If that's the main sticking point in knowing that that's not really any of the initiatives that we're trying to do, a motion of approving the teacher handbook, but a request that the pronouns come back for, I don't know if we wanna make it an actionable or just for confirmation next month. That allows us to do the things that really are mission critical, while also making sure that we have those things that we find important would be a piece, right? I'm trying to,
Sounds reasonable.
you know, so
Let's have a new
it can be an
motion.
amendment, this is our action and we're taking that same action, but we're just doing this little piece around the pronouns. And then I think that's a probably more powerful statement than not approving these, it's this, but we want to make sure that this pronoun situation is confirmed and if we don't come to resolution next month, it can be another actionable. We'll do it as possible action for the board next year, or next year.
Yeah, let's
Next
just
one.
push it off.
Just push it, I'm done.
Really push it on.
Yeah, till next month, and it'll be possible action, which means if you're good, there's no action needed, but if it's not, you could actually strike it down. Does that sound right?
That sounds
And we could do that for both, we could do that for both, if we wanted to, if you wanted to.
So,
Do we need to highlight the insurance piece and why that's important?
Patty, can you explain why the HRA is important?
Because in the past, they've been trying to push for this for 3 years. It's finally in. If somebody decides to take our insurance July 1st, they're automatic, when they take family insurance, they're automatically get a $3,000 HRA. And then they decide September 1st that they don't want our insurance anymore. They could have already spent all $3,000 of that HRA. In the handbook now, it's saying it would be prorated. So you would only get 2 months of that HRA. So versus us losing $3,000, what would that be?
And it would be, they got what they earned, you know, they get 1/12 or 2/12 or
That is
3/12
a
of that, yeah.
That, I feel that this is important that this gets put in the handbook so to protect us a little bit better on that.
So you can buy more buses.
What?
So you can buy more buses.
We only have one more we need, then we're gonna get a coach bus,
Last bus and one van.
yeah.
So would someone like to make that motion that we will move forward with the handbook with the acknowledgement that we will be revisiting those pronouns next month with possible action if we need it?
I can live with that. I'll make that motion.
Okay, and Rini seconds. All right, any more discussion or questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, good job, guys.
I'll abstain from that though, because I haven't read it. I don't wanna
What
vote.
was that, for the support staff one or the teacher one?
That
This
was-
was teacher.
All right, and are we gonna now do the same with the support staff?
Is support staff,
No, there were a lot more questions we were gonna talk about, I think.
okay, I
Just
wasn't
ran
in
out
there,
of
so I
time.
don't know
Right.
what the problems were, so they have other issues in support staff.
Is that,
Is the HRA
Okay.
still a problem there?
I think that should be okay. Because I don't think right now I have any support staff.
But they're still gonna get paid, right? 'Cause that's all their pay is on there too.
That's already been approved,
All right, very
so,
good.
yep,
Yeah.
no, the new
Y'all yellow
compensation
too.
model,
I'm like,
yes.
it looks like it changed.
Yep, yep.
All right,
Good
making
job.
sure.
I'm sorry, Katie, so you abstained from
I
the
abstain
teacher?
from that, yeah,
From the
for
teacher.
other reasons, I mean, because I haven't read it, like I feel uncomfortable.
Okay, student handbook. Is there a motion to approve the student handbook?
All at once, all of them, or one at a time?
We generally do them all together. Is there a motion, anyone?
It's good, my hand is getting tired right now.
I just have a question before I make a motion.
So the,
So if there are questions, we can get a motion on the floor and have discussion, and then, either vote it up or vote it down based on the answers.
But we can't talk about it unless we have a motion?
I believe the rules are, you have to have a motion to discuss.
Bring it forward.
Yes.
you
It
have
has
a
to be
motion,
on
a
the floor.
second, and then it's discussion before you vote on it, would be how you move forward.
I motion to discuss the student handbook.
All right, is there a second
I'll second that.
to discuss it?
Sure.
Okay. Have at it.
Go ahead.
I have a question about academic planning on the drop ad policy. I didn't know if it was new language for, students will be held to their schedule unless there's extenuating circumstances due to staffing needs and sections of courses needed for the upcoming school year as determined through their student course request. So I guess I just wanted clarification on this. If a student, they're picking classes in advance, sometimes several months in advance, and when the time comes and they start that class and they realize it was not the right fit for them, is this saying that they're not allowed to drop that class within the first few weeks? It's only if it's based on staffing needs and I'm wondering what the extenuating circumstances, well, that's due to staffing needs and course sections. So are we taking away some flexibility for our students when they're choosing classes if they change their mind? Or maybe they've had a schedule that is very rigorous and they realize going into school that maybe they need to make a change. How's that work?
So, I've been in plenty of those conversations, and that's what extenuating circumstances are, is, you know, the statement is, we can't just be, I don't like the kids that are in this class, so I'm gonna change, you know, and when we have some of that from time to time. But we have had it, and we've actually had it where it's impacted grading, where actually after 4 or 5 weeks, I'm in an AP class, and you know what, I had 3 other AP classes, and now I feel like I'm being over. So those we will change. Actually, this last semester, we had a kiddo that was stressing out, everything else. We moved her from an AP to the regular one, and we didn't do anything negative to her grading and things like that. So of course, we're always gonna do what's best for kids. We don't hold a real tight line. We don't wanna force kids to be in classes, but if there's circumstances on why we wanna change, we wanna make sure that there's at least good reasons to it, so.
And that was my understanding for how we operate, but when I
Yeah.
read this, I really don't see this in the way this is worded, so I didn't know if this was a change in our wording from the past.
It is, because it's in blue, it is tweaked. I don't know how the wording is different. Do you know?
I don't know, I guess I have to go out and compare if it's even still there, the last year's,
Right.
otherwise I can check this using all that. I don't know what the exact change is, just that section has changed.
Right.
Are the changes in this section being requested by the new guidance counselor, or is it something that happened prior to him?
I would say all these would be from either Susan and or Julie for whatever reasons.
I know in personal experience, my son wanted to drop an AP class and he was given like really no choice to do that this past year. So I mean, I feel like there should be some leeway, like she's saying, that, you know, really allows them to change and adjust as needed, you know, especially for some of the rigorous classes and,
And
I
that's
think-
even in this part that's not been changed, right, the dropping a year-long elective process, right? Any students who graded after the first semester may drop a year-long class. I've always wondered about that policy and why that would even be a policy. What if somebody is in AP physics and then realize they wanna go into business? Like, why are they gonna continue that?
I know it's hard to reschedule with that block schedule or whatever, right? Now we're switching back to the prior scheduling, so it should be easier potentially.
Started happening, the word on the street was that that was because you were trying to get students ready for college, and that's what it was like for college. That's not true. And I think it's really prescriptive, like if a faculty member wants to have 75% summative, so summative is like test, right? Informative is like homework. So if a faculty member wants to do that and feels like in their discipline that gets people ready for college and that way with students, like, I don't have a problem with that. I think that we're really underselling our faculty by making them follow this, and a couple of them have said, like, I wish I didn't have to do this, but this is the way it has to be, like, I don't know why we're doing that, I guess, and so my question is, like, is that necessary, right? Do we need to tell the faculty that that's how they have to grade their students, or do we give them a little bit more freedom and have like it has to be a minimum of whatever, 25% summative or 50% summative or something. And this certainly isn't something that I think board would decide. I think maybe we could get a committee of faculty together to talk about what their options are from different disciplines. Like, I think our teachers are really solid, and I think we're pulling away some of their contribution by making
Was
something
this brought
way.
to the board by the, like, DTL team or whatever? Because,
I feel like this is an Adam thing from years back on here, when some of those things are changing, and with the things that we're doing around our, standards referenced, we're working with, oh, darn it, I can't think of our power standards and all that other good stuff. I think this is a hangover yet that is going to be changing. So I think in some cases, this may be followed, but in some cases it's not already. So I can't speak directly to it, but I would say that since this was crafted, and this was crafted before I got here, that this is slowly converting over to something new, and I think we're doing some of that best practices now, and I'm not even sure how much this is in the new reality that we're doing, but my piece is leave this, and then we probably should talk about what it looks like as we're going forward, because there are some things that we need to change with grading when we do these two pieces, so yeah.
Giving the teachers some input in that, I think, right?
It's all about teacher input, the teachers are the ones that have created their power standards. They're the ones that have talked about the reporting categories. They're the ones that actually talk about what percentage each reporting category goes to. So none of that stuff's really reflected in here because we're going into year one of it. But we rely heavily on the experts to tell us what to do, and this was very administrative driven and not my way of doing things. So I would say, give us a little time and this will be tweaked, so.
Can it be struck?
At this point, not with what we're doing for next year. And actually, the group has requested that all of that remain the same because of the other changes that are happening. And then as we move forward beyond this coming year, that's when they're gonna probably look at these tweaks and things. But to strike it now would be disruptive to all of the work that they've done already in preparation for the standards reference grading system that's coming.
Because isn't striking it just mean they can do what they want?
That would be disruptive to what they've requested be. They want everything as left alone as it can be, just as we roll into this new standard reference. And then we'll start eventually looking at each of these pieces that could change to be more flexible.
So they is a subcommittee of teachers and other.
It's shared, yeah.
So,
It's all teachers.
yeah.
But it's not all of the teachers.
No.
When they're talking about stuff on there, I also think retakes as a requirement.
Where are you?
Kind of in the same grid, but it's, like, it says that students will always be allowed to retake any summative assessment as long as they did the other work in. I don't know. I mean, so the students come into the college classroom, right, and expect to retake everything, and that's just not what happens. Right, so it was all part of the same sort of idea, right, that we're getting them ready for college, but we're actually, you know,
Well, it's a very different philosophy. I mean, the retake philosophy of this is we make learning the constant, not time the constant. And when this is in here is, we expect you to file your taxes. You can't fail your taxes and not do your taxes. You have to do these things, because we're down to a handful of things that you need to pass in order to pass the class. So that's why it's important to allow students to show their proficiency in other ways in that. So I think it's a little different philosophy in what we're trying to do with our kiddos. It's allowing us to do things in our special ed world and allow us to create a different environment where we can tell kids, hey, you know what, these are the 10 things that you need to show us that you can do, so you can move on to the next class. So I know what you're saying about the college piece, and I think we get to that when we get to the dual credit classes and the CAT classes and some of those other things that truly every student will have to take before they graduate, with how we're doing it. But some of this is, it kind of depends on the class and what
well,
we're.
that's what I'm saying, I mean, so I'm not saying nobody should allow retakes, I'm saying the teacher should not be forced to allow retakes of it. Right, which is how I read this.
Right.
That's what I'm saying, so
Yeah.
take a look at that.
All right, what else?
So the only other thing I have, I think, is the religion in the curriculum part. And so it's got policy 8800, I don't know what that policy says, so it might be addressed in there, but there was just the Supreme Court ruling with the coach, right, that was still allowed to play on the field. I don't know if what this says means that a teacher can't have a cross up in their room, but if that is what this part means, then I don't think that that's justifiable. Right, like somebody practicing their own religion or being even obvious if they have one, right, whether that religion is, you know, Christian or Muslim or whatever, right, I don't think having something on their wall up that shows that they have a faith is the same thing as trying to force kids to the spot.
So, I'm very familiar with the football coach praying, and in my interpretation, it had to do with, the coach was doing it on his own time, even though it was after a game, it was during his own time, so as a district, you can't say anything. I think that would be very different than having, a cross in the classroom, because it's in, you know, and again, you know, I think we do a very good job of trying to be apolitical, and I have no problem if you have a cross in your classroom, but then, do you have a Buddha, and, you know, like do you have, like, is it part of the curriculum that you have it? So, I don't know, I just, it seems like a very slippery slope to mess with, when there's no issue. So, that would be my piece now, cause I've read the Supreme Court 3 times, and I'm still not exactly sure that that how they got to that. I get it, but, you know, there's so many political biases in that piece, cause we know who our Supreme Court is. I don't know, I really think as a team, we should try to keep our head as low from those kind of things, instead of making political statements, and just be about kids. And we live in a dangerous world right now, where getting on the national news doesn't take much, and, you know, my goal is to stay off that stuff, so, all you need to do is have somebody put a cross up and then somebody not like it, and you end up in Kiel where somebody says this is this, somebody says it's not, and before you know it, you got lawyers battling at it, and we have hundreds of thousands of dollars towards things that don't go to kids. So, yeah, it's a challenging time right now, I tell you, it's not fun.
I was
So-
gonna just ask, sorry to cut you off.
No,
if
fine.
this policy has been viewed in the light of the latest Supreme Court ruling by an attorney or a review, has this been looked at and said, okay, this is the ruling, how does it fit into that? And have attorneys looked at that, or does this predate that current ruling? And does that current ruling actually directly affect this? And I was trying to read it earlier, or I was reading it, and when I didn't read the whole decision from the Supreme Court, but from what I took from it, I don't know that it impacts this any differently. And I wonder, do you know if there's been any lawyers looking at this and making that decision, or seeing how it plays within the new rule?
Now, I guess my first question is, this is policy 2270. So have we changed 2270 and has this
I
reflected?
can double check, just to make sure that we have
Because my-
the most current, this is right about the time that we get the
Yeah.
newest set of updates.
Right.
So it's possible that there could be a change to it, and those are automatically, if we get told that something's been updated like that, it goes through the whole process, and then it automatically goes into the handbook with that change. But I can see where we are on this.
See where,
particular
because
one.
the nice thing I can say is, once Neola touches it, then we'll touch it, you know what I mean? Like they'll have those kind of thoughts, and this is so new, I mean, that just came down just a few weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
So,
There could be
and
some
that's
changes.
Supreme Court ruling, I know I've got numerous emails on it. So I would say this probably hasn't adjusted to that.
Okay.
But I'm not sure how much that refers to this
Well,
anyways.
that's
Cause
how I-
cause they really got down into freedom of choice for an individual on free time, even though it was on school property, it was after the game, there were some of those things that
It
were
was more
some nuances.
specific to the individual
Yeah.
coach too.
Right.
Where this is general, I guess what I'm saying is, I think if this has worked for the past, until it's looked at in the light of, in the scope of that new decision, we should just stick with what it is until we get that new
And
update,
since it's,
and then debate it at that time.
since it's now going to be next month, it sounds like before this is going approved, going to be looked at for approval again, is that what I'm understanding here? As
Or we're
discussing?
gonna approve it with these and then we will confirm it next month like we did with the handbook. We'll have to, cause we do have a first and second on the table on it, so it'll have to be one of the two.
We're
I guess
going to
we-
have to have a rework of this to come back, but I don't know where we are on this.
Well, my understanding is we have, what I'm thinking, I was just looking on my phone, it may be an improper motion because we have a motion to discuss only.
Discuss, right.
So that may be an improper motion that there is no, we can't really take action on. Are we gonna vote on, yes, we discussed it? So I think that's an improper motion.
Right.
So we really don't have a motion on the floor.
Okay.
So what do we do then? We wait for a new motion to come?
So can we move to table this for next month and?
When we
what
see
the
these changes,
that have been made?
when we see these changes that we just talked about, I think you took pretty good notes about that, right?
Are there any other, before we decide what we're doing here? Is middle school, elementary?
And those two.
So can we do a motion to approve the middle school and the elementary handbooks?
I would make that motion.
Rainey, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Chuck? Any other discussion on middle school and elementary handbooks? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So we can table, we'll just table the high school handbook until August. We might need to have a August 1 meeting so that we can get all this stuff taken care of before school starts. So we might need to have a earlier meeting just for this administrative stuff, so that Kim and everyone else has time to have it printed and ready to go for school.
Unless we can get it by next week.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the other piece, we'll see what we can do with this to get to next week, and then we'll put it on the agenda, what we can do for
I
next
can
week.
let you know in a day or two.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, did you wanna abstain from that last
Yes.
vote too? Okay.
Kim, I'd like to abstain from that.
I'm sorry, you're
I would like
saying?
to abstain from that one. I also didn't get a chance to read those. So, same reason.
Okay. We're moving on to something else. Student handbooks, all right. We have the notification and first reading from Neola. So, Mike or Kim, can you refresh my memory on what
So
we?
technical corrections don't really need an approval, but through our conversations, Kim is gonna go back to Richard, and we're going to make sure that when we bring it back, pronouns are something that we feel comfortable with.
So that is 2266 that has the pronoun situation in it, that specifically speaks to that.
Okay, okay,
But the other technical corrections, we were okay with.
that's right.
So there's only the one we're pulling out to,
To do some with the pronouns,
Right.
correct,
okay. Which may in fact change some of these other policies, but it's only that. And then for the single reading and approval, we, so these we only have to do the one time, and so we could vote on these today.
We can vote
But we're gonna pull out the grievance procedure,
the last
Yeah.
one.
the 3340, 4340. So,
Because of pronoun reasons.
was that the only thing that was in there?
Yep, that's what I have in mind. We would be approving the 142.1, the 142.5, 152, not the 3340, 4340. Right? So everything except that
That
last
sounds
one.
right.
Okay.
The last one.
So is there a motion to approve 142.1, 142.5, and 152?
I make a motion.
Rini, is there a second? Amy, any further discussion or questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So 3340 and 4340 will be back at a later date. And then then we have others presented for first reading, so those should come back next month for a final vote,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
Okay. Good job, Kim, I love this paper. Oh, that was very helpful. Okay. I guess we took some of those, we did a couple of those together, because the updated policy designated for the single reading, we went ahead and did. So we have staff resignation. Sarah Quist, 6 years in elementary. Linda Weicker, 7 years in the high school special education. And Melanie Wiedmeyer, 11 years. Is there a motion to approve the resignations with thanks for their many years of service?
So moved.
Chuck, is there a second?
Second.
Matt, any further discussion or questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So we have new staff, elementary, second grade, Courtney Lucas. Any relation?
I don't think so.
Other
Not that I,
Lucas?
not that, no.
Okay.
Quite a few.
Could have a third Lucas, yeah, exactly. Throw a stick, you hit a Lucas in our district, right?
Middle school, fifth grade, Wendy Wagner Forrider, I'm not sure how to say that. And high school cross-categorical, special ed, Jason Last. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Matt, is there a second? Is that Katie? Any questions or discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Yes.
Do you need to point out the Jason last situation?
Oh, yeah, so with the Jason Last piece, his board, coming from Kewaskum, meets tomorrow, so our approval is dependent on their board letting him out of his contract tomorrow. So, although we don't see that being an issue, if it does, we will have to revisit it, so.
Okay.
So just to kind of make sure that our approval is upon his successful completion of terminating his contract.
All right, we have notification of a new salaried staff. Lead ID room substitute, Andrea Schley, and Rams Care Director, Amanda
Salis?
Salis?
So we do have a director, after about 4 months of searching. The way, Chris is going to be taking an assistant director role, and Amanda's coming in. She doesn't have, we've recruited, and found somebody local that has been spending the last many years as a manager of a nursing home, had done a lot of this stuff, but just had a child, and has come in and knows how to run facilities and all that other good stuff, and now is gonna be our child care director. So, in connection with Laura Klingelhoots, we have that group, and we'll keep going forward. So Amanda's first day is tomorrow, and Andrea is gonna be taking over in her ID room, comes with lots of years of experience, but is coming as a substitute teacher, because she has a substitute license, and will be graduating in December. So we're able to do some creative things to get our kids here and putting the right people in front of our kiddos for that, so.
Great. And on 19, do we have new support staff, or was that just in case?
We leave it as a placeholder this time of year. just in
Okay,
case.
yeah, that's what I thought when I saw it on the agenda. I was like, okay, maybe we'll have somebody by then, but, okay. Paid co-curricular coaches and advisors for 22-23. Dave Pfeiffer, Jim Hirschleb, Dylan Guildmeister, and Jason Last, all football. Oh, and co-assistants Mike Donahue and Jacob Pfeiffer. Just notifications. A renewal of existing line of credit. This is something that we do periodically. Or actually, I think we have to do we do that every year?
Yep.
I think it's
every year.
annual.
Yep.
Is there a motion to renew the line of credit at Commerce State Bank for our temporary borrowing?
So moved.
Matt and Chuck, any questions or discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We also have to designate our official depository. Is there a motion to continue with Collins State Bank and Commerce State Bank?
So moved.
Katie and Chuck, any questions or discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We also have another notification for academic standards for 22-23. This is something that the district must report annually, what our standards are, correct?
Yes, yep, formality.
So, just info there. Approval of the contract for the CISA 7 for 22-23 school year. And again, this is an annual thing. Is there a motion to continue?
So moved.
Matt, is there a second?
I'll second.
Amy, any questions or discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We need to establish the time of the annual meeting and the budget hearing. At last year's meeting, the date for 22 was set for Monday, October 24th, 22. Generally, we have the budget hearing at 6:15 and the meeting at 6:30. Is that date, October 24th, still good, Patty? Okay. Is there a motion to set the date for the 24th, 2022 of 6:15 and 6:30? Katie, is there a second?
Second.
Rini, any questions or discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And we have informational items.
So just real quickly, I did let you know, I don't know if it was last month or the month before, we have in our handbook that, our spring break will be the last full week of March unless Easter falls in the first week of April. Because April first is a Saturday, and that next weekend is Easter, we went with the first week of April, which technically was wrong. So you can see here, this is following our handbook as we're supposed to. And that's what happens when you have one day, April first, April Fool's Day fall on a Saturday, which is still that first week, so it's not a full week. So that's what the change is there. 23-24, this next year, we are working on that calendar. We do have a couple things that are kinda creative with that, cause the first is a Friday, so with, September first being a Friday, we aren't gonna have a one-day school day. And then if we start after Labor Day, it means we'll have to come back after Memorial Day. So I'm just kinda curious from this group, we can put in a request to start a day or two early, so maybe we start August 30th, and have a 2-day week like we have this week. Or we just plan on going past Memorial Day for a couple days. Any thoughts from this group as we build that on how? Part of me is thinking about asking for a waiver and making, having school for 2 or 3 days in that first part of the week is a nice way to get kids acclimated, get back, get the rules in and all those other things, and when you come back from Labor Day, you hit the ground running. So I may look at a waiver for this board to request a waiver, if you think you would support that.
That's tough on 4-H kids.
Yeah.
Right, so for fair, like I would have always argued against that as a 4-H parent. I don't know what, it used to be 20% of our students, I don't know if we're at that number anymore. But that weekend is always.
Right.
I think they've learned to deal with it, cause that's the way it is, they start school and then they have fair. So I don't think this makes that any worse.
It just makes it another year of not working, right? Like, so half of the years it works, because school doesn't start till the Tuesday after Labor Day, and half of the years it doesn't, because school starts on.
Oh, I see what you're saying, if we pushed it later, it would be nice for them.
It's tough, they show on, some of them show on Thursday and Friday, most of them show on Friday, a lot of them show on Thursday, like, so if they're missing school, while the rest of them are getting it, that affirmation, right, so.
So, yeah, and we can kinda think about it, it's either 4-H for Labor Day or the entire population for Memorial Day, so it's,
There's not a way to pull some like days or extra time into the calendar through the semester.
it's tough, it's, the way everything works, so we'll play with it a little bit, let me look at it, and we'll bring some options out here. I wanna look at what some other districts are doing, just the way Christmas, everything else falls, it'll be a little unique one, but we'll get through it. I just wanna let you know, July 26th, next week, Tuesday, in collaboration with, Lakeview Library, we are actually hosting the Federal Bank. The Federal Bank Board, is a group of bank professionals that, travel the nation and, the last few years have really looked at different socioeconomic issues and how they can invest their federal funds into loans that can help. It's been, last few years, they've been really looking at the disparity around the racial gap. And now they're looking at rural America, and due to our connections, the Shmoy County Economic Development Corporation and things that we're doing in Random Lake, they're spending 45 minutes out here to hear the Random Lake story. So this group goes all over this country, and they're coming, and we'll be doing that. So it will be there'll be more information coming. It will be an open presentation from us as a district. Brian has kind of all the things, I'm not even sure what I'm presenting on that, but been asked to be there, and I will. Yeah, exactly.
Mike, is this the same as a presentation from the Chicago Bank coming up?
Yeah,
for the
that's it,
village?
yeah, the federal
Oh,
bank there.
it is,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
so we're providing the chairs and some of the setup, and they're providing the really great overview on the first floor, so. And then lastly, Random Lake, hey, this is really a piece that we're on the front end of being a gigabyte community, which is huge to to be a rural community, have all the amenities we have and still have high-speed internet is fantastic. You may have seen that the district is supporting that initiative. We actually, filed for a grant that would have paid that whole $90,000, and that was part of the agreement. We didn't get that grant, so we are looking at other grants to help support the community through this. It won't be taxpayer, it won't be randomly taxpayer funds from our Fund 10, but there's other ways, working with Bertram, working with the SCDC, that we can help this go through and grab some redundancies in our internet and things like that, so.
Is this
always
regarding
trying-
the fiber optic being
Yeah.
installed?
Yeah,
Is Bertram gonna be the delivery person of that
yeah.
internet?
Yeah, so we have Charter, we'll always stay with Charter, but we would go with redundancies and have this because when they're up and going, their pipe will be even bigger than what we have. So as we look at different advantages around esports and things like that, having them connected could be a real great advantage for a lot of different areas. So, you know, we're in a time where you can never have too much internet, so.
Will this eliminate, like, aren't we paying for hotspots in some areas for some of our families too?
We'll still need those hotspots, cause this is good for the village, and we don't pay for a lot of hotspots in the village.
Okay.
Our hotspots are more out in the burbs, you know, burbs a little bit, so no. But the hope is sooner or later we get to that point, and having fiber come down 57 is a big step towards getting it for our entire school population.
And, also, if you can wear your new Ram gear at the August meeting, so that, Gary can take our picture.
Is that gonna be sent out with Kim's orders, so we remember?
Kim?
Yes, and we'll remember that.
That's the last that I had on informational, did you?
That's all I had
That's
too,
it?
yes ma'am.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
Rainey, is there a second?
Second? Oh,
Chuck?
sure.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, everybody. And we'll see you on Monday, 5 o'clock.
Yes, 5 o'clock. And then we will add whatever we can of these things to get done,
That'd be
so
great.
that August isn't as big, okay?
That'd be great.
And we'll do all the referendum stuff first, and then all this other stuff after.
If it is
I
our
did.
grant,
Yeah.
And did you
Or
take
we
these
not
two
pay
that
for them,
came
or-
in?